And it turns out that Australia is the biggest global spender on K-beauty outside of Korea. And the total market size for K-beauty is expected to double by 2032. This week in e-commerce, episode 105. I am Mal Chia, and back with me is Alex Ross.
Hello. Hey, Mal. How's it going?
Doing really well. So I'm more or less over the flu. So hopefully that's it for this year, and I can enjoy reasonably good health for the next 3 months of the year.
Yeah. Ready for spring and summertime.
Absolutely. Cannot wait. Although who knows when that's actually going to come.
Well, yes. And I saw some prediction around an El Nino, La Nina, one of those, A or B, around the summer that we're going to have, which apparently is going to be wet.
Right. Okay. Wow. A lot to look forward to. Look, it's hard to predict now. And I saw something last week as well around how your horoscopes have also changed as well. So over the last 50, 60 years since horoscopes became a thing, it's actually changed. So if you're a Capricorn, which I am, apparently I'm a Sagittarius now.
Right. Well, and it's all got to do with your rising moon and your setting star or whatever the other parts of the horoscope are as well.
Yeah, Casey in our team talks about that a lot, and I have no idea what she's talking about anytime she says that. So it's all about the Mercury rising and this, that, and the other, and the setting moon, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure. All right, we've got a lot to cover off because it has been a very busy week. And my God, it's been a crazy weekend as well in terms of everything which has been going on in the news. It is hard to really stay on top of all the bad news which is out there.
Yeah, agreed. It feels like it's pretty relentless at the moment.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that, things start to calm down a little bit, on the political front as we head into the back quarter of the year. And I can't believe it's also only 3.5 months left of the year as well.
I know, it's really ticking down. End of Q3 is happening really quick, and then it's just gonna go into festive season from there. I haven't heard it yet, but I'm waiting for the "let's pick this up next year" email. I expect I'll get that soonish, which is horrifying.
Well, I've already actually booked in Christmas plans for my team because I thought last year we were so late and we just had to scramble to get a booking. So this year, booked it well in advance. We've got the date, we've got the location, everyone's organised. So
Nice.
just ticking that one off the box.
Yeah. Oh, and with Black Friday coming up soon, we're gonna have to start getting organised on the presents wish list so you can make the most of that.
That's right. And we are going to get into that a little bit later as well. All right. But our first story today is about K-beauty. And K-beauty is on the rise if you have not heard. Now, I was at the Sydney Beauty Expo a couple of weeks ago and K-beauty was everywhere. There was a whole section of the ICC dedicated towards K-beauty. And it turns out that Australia is the biggest global spender on K-beauty outside of Korea. And the total market size for K-beauty is currently sitting at $105 million from 2023 and is expected to double by 2032.
Huge numbers, particularly seeing Australia lead that growth outside of the US is really interesting, right?
It is. What do you think is driving this? Like, why do you think people are so into K-beauty right now?
I think, look, it's everywhere on social media. It's one of those word of mouth stories as well, where I think we've all got friends who have been overseas and bought some back or have ordered it online. And I only ever hear amazing things.
I think there's a lot of novelty in terms of what they do as well, like everything in terms of the ingredients, the formulations, even like the glass face mask products. They just come out with really, really interesting things. And I think that it's also becoming quite an alternative as well to the luxury market, where rather than paying, ESOP prices for, a hand wash, people are able to get something much more affordable, but also still quality and novel as well. And for me, I wouldn't underestimate just how hot as well Korean culture currently is. Whether you're looking at K-pop Demon Hunters, which spent, the last several weeks on top of the Netflix charts, it's everywhere. Every time I turn on YouTube, I'm always getting served with different covers of the songs from there. K-dramas are everywhere as well. I think just Korea, everyone is just so into Korea right now.
Yeah, 100%. It's just hitting us from so many different angles and it's the perfect storm. I think the element of it being overseas and from Korea does add luxury as well, rather than thinking of ASOP as being traditional luxury. It's luxurious to get the best products in the world, and they happen to be from Korea.
Yep, absolutely. All right, now Monday Swimwear, which is one of our global success stories, have opened up their Beverly Hills flagship, and I thought this was really, really cool. That they're opening up something which is not just a small dingy store somewhere. They're going all out with this global flagship store in probably the most iconic fashion suburb in the world.
Yeah, 100%. It's really cements their position as though that global leader, right? And having Beverly Hills as that flagship, it's all around that culture piece. It's exciting news for them.
Yeah, and a lot of brands moving into this space as well. Okay, next quick story we have is Choice have recently come up with they're going to be supporting a click to cancel subscription initiative as they can see that the rise of the number of people who are being caught up and unable to subscribe from services continues to increase.
Yeah, everybody just the slow clap, I think, for this one. I'm excited for this, much needed. It's always really easy to subscribe and then really, really difficult to unsubscribe. So, click to cancel initiative sounds amazing.
Yeah, just be able to do it with just with one click instead of having to go through some of the loopholes and the hurdles which they put in front of you to get out of anything which you sign up for.
Yeah, exactly. Or getting like having to get on the phone, those types of pathways just not okay in
Yep.
2020.
I remember when I had to unsubscribe from Foxtel. I had to call, I had to do all this stuff. I had to package up my equipment, send it back. It was an absolute nightmare. And I was just halfway through the process of just thinking, maybe just keep it because this is too bloody hard.
So now I would just cancel the card and start again.
But
I'm
that's
like,
what a lot of people do.
yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah. Okay. And finally, this one I thought was pretty cool is that the EU have adopted the final text of the extended producer responsibility laws, which really propose changes to how brands collect and dispose of wasted products.
Yeah, we were talking about this. I think it was last week actually. How Europe are always really ahead when it comes to these legislation changes and particularly sustainability in retail. So yeah, excited to see how this can start to pave a bit of a playbook for the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's not going to happen anytime soon. So there is a timeline to implement of about 20 months. And then I think smaller brands have up to 30 months to be able to implement this. But there is going to need to be a lot of change happening in the space over that period. So whether we look at things like changing packaging to be more transparent in terms of where things are coming from, but also how things need to get disposed, but also how that cost gets passed through as well, whether the manufacturers pass that on to the consumer to be able to offset some of that, but also what they need to then do to be able to adjust the supply chains as well to be able to provide for that, to be able to provide for that collection of those waste products, those unused textiles, etc., and arrange for them to be properly disposed of or recycled.
Yeah, and seeing brands like Mason de Sabre where they've got their bag charms, which are made off those leftover pieces of leather from their handbags, is an amazing example of how brands can start to use that wastage rather than having to arrange for disposal. And I think we'll see brands get a bit more creative with that now that they're put under that responsibility.
Yeah, and I really hope so. I think this is a change which has been long coming. So hopefully that Australia looks to adopt something similar in the future. All right, getting to our deep dive topics. One of my hero brands, if anyone has ever seen me present in the last 5 years, there's one brand which I pretty consistently talk about, and that is Lululemon. And I've always held them up to be this example of this brand which has been able to charge a significant premium in their category compared to what most of their competitors charge, and also have been able to see their share price continue to grow and grow, and their valuation and their market share continue to grow. But their shares in the last 6 months are down 50%. So even though they're seeing revenues increase year on year, 7% up about $2.5 billion, their US sales are slowing significantly, and also their margins have been eroded as well, largely through the tariffs. Alex, what do you think about Lululemon and where this company's headed?
Yeah, this is a sad story. I think I share that same sentiment with you. Like I always put Lululemon maybe on that pedestal, to be honest, in terms of an amazing brand, great R&D, love their products, love their stores. So reading through the details of this thought was really interesting. Just being so large, obviously they're going to be slow to move and react to things like the tariffs and changing in economy. But I think that there's also been a shift in trend from that kind of COVID athleisure era. Now we're seeing kind of more that baggy jean, baggy pant. So they might be competing with different fashion trends, but also just competing with more businesses in their space.
And you can see that in their particular category, that super premium activewear or athleisure wear, you've got Alo Yoga and Vuori, who are also growing quite well as well. And Alo Yoga, I know, are definitely coming after Lulu's market share and are doing a really good job of it. They've significantly ramped up their marketing. And because they're not quite as ubiquitous as Lulu as well, they still have sort of that novelty factor, yeah, to them. Same as Vuori, who don't really sell into Australia currently, but also do have a bit of novelty factor, where those are brands where if everyone else has a Lulu and you want that next thing, you're going to be looking to some of these other brands. So I think whether you see some of these big luxury brands kind of hit this saturation point where, do you know what? It starts to feel less premium. It starts to feel maybe a little bit less luxury now.
Yeah, it feels a bit same. And aloe's everywhere. I see it all over socials. They do a really great job of activating. They would have probably been celebrating it this article, knowing they're making, big changes. But also to our point last week with Lorna Jane, I know Aloe invest in experiences for their community. Lululemon, that could be a really good avenue for them to explore whilst they do still have loyal shoppers.
Yeah. But also you talked about before about that trend towards more baggy jeans as well, your baggy clothing. And that has been flagged as being one of the things which people are now looking to work out in more, particularly in things like yoga, Pilates, where you're not wearing the tight leggings, you're looking to wear something a little bit looser. And that's a trend which we're starting to see more and more. And whether Lulu, who've really built their whole reputation around, skinny black tights, whether that's really something which they're even prepared for at the moment as as the market shifts, because you mentioned before they're a very large brand, $2.5 billion in revenue. They're global. It's very hard to move that ship when you're so invested into some particular into particular category.
Yeah. And to be playing catch up in that space as well, it's a lot for them.
And how much do you think the tariffs have actually impacted them as well? So in the report, they were saying that there's been an impact of about $240 million hit to their GP through tariffs.
Yeah, I didn't know what to think of that. I thought a little bit of they're such a large business, they've got all of the resources at their fingertips. Whilst it might be slow to move, they've got lots of opportunities to make the most of those resources and pivot really quickly. What did you think of that tariff piece, Mel?
Well, I didn't think it was so much around the de minimis, but more around the fact that there are tariffs. So coming from Europe, coming from Asia, because they're importing a lot of that product, none of it is actually being made in the US. They are now having to pay the tariff on that import. So even if that's going to be on the COGS, that's still a significant amount which you're paying on the COGS. And their products are from all over the place. They're from Asia, some of it's from Europe as well. So it's very expensive. They're bringing it in from extremely expensive markets from a tariff point of view anyway.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, but I think it'd be interesting because like they have been the leader in this space for so long. I don't think they're a Nike stage, but I think Nike have the ability to come back and come back out on top. I'm actually a little bit less bullish on Lulu's ability to be able to, to be able to turn the ship around, just because A, how competitive that space is, and also B, they're not Nike. They don't quite have that same cachet as Nike, where Nike are almost too big to fail.
Yeah, I hope they are. Too big to fail, Lululemon. It'd be a really sad story. They're still my favorite brand, honestly, in this space. So yeah, we'll have to see how they kind of weather the storm.
Yeah, me too. Like, I've had, but that's also part of the other problem as well. I just remembered that is that because of the life cycle of their products as well, repurchase is actually relatively low. I have the same Lululemon shorts, tees, and tanks, which I bought about 2, 3 years ago. And I don't feel any desire to change them because I still feel and look as good as new. And I wear these every week.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion because then you can also get into the fact that they have, I believe, a lifetime warranty on manufacturing faults on their products. So you can bring a pair of tights back 5 years later if the seams start to go, and they'll replace them. It's happened to me before. No questions asked, right? Just having a look at the product, which is an amazing retention tool. I think about that experience all the time, but it was no dollars in their book for that.
Yeah.
And it's
So
delayed my next purchase another 3 years.
yeah, and when you're essentially selling staples, because most of their top sellers are very much just in like your core colors, your base colors, there's no real need to come back and buy another one. How many black tights do you need? Actually, don't answer that. I know a lot of people have a lot of black tights.
Or
All right, so watch the space. Hopefully, the share price can do a bit of a turnaround, but we'll see next quarter when they come out with their financials then. All right, moving on to our next deep dive topic is going to be the fragrance boom, where fragrances are everywhere. And according to Business of Fashion, there are more brands jumping into the fragrance category than any other category in the world, and particularly in this fashion and beauty space. So, Alex, why do you think that people more brands are starting to move into fragrances? We know that in other areas like fashion, people will go into, if they're doing women's fashion, they'll move into sleepwear, they'll move into underwear, maybe they'll go into bedding.
Yeah, I think it's part of that wider trend of like conversion is down. So how do we get more out of those that are actually converting? How do we grow our
Mm.
AOV? How do we get more out of our loyal shoppers who have already bought into the brand by releasing that fragrance? It's an accessory item essentially. It complements everything that they've already purchased, so it's not going to take away from a core purchase. And I believe the margins are relatively healthy in fragrances too.
They are generally from most of the brands I've worked with, you're anywhere from like 70 to 90% GP minimum.
Yeah, unreal. So we love that. And potentially also it's just another sense where we're talking about experiences, that kind of smell in itself is an experience that you tie to the brand.
Absolutely. I think, again, that's what people are looking for rather than something which is commoditized or relatively commoditized, like, clothing. It's the smell. It's the smell which has that experience attached to it. It's got that emotion attached to it. So, and I think a lot of brands are trying to tap into that at the moment as we move away from being more conscious with what we're buying for as well. But you're starting to see this where, fragrances, you walk into a chemist warehouse, yeah, every celebrity and his dog has a fragrance there. You can get a VB fragrance. Yeah, it's pretty wild. So it's also a super competitive space. And you wonder, does this actually take away from some of the incumbents, some of the brands who have been doing fragrances for a while? Because you now have all these newer novel brands with someone who, let's say, for argument's sake, I'm a Princess Polly fan. I'm a White Fox customer. I've got lots of White Fox. White Fox have a fragrance. Okay, well, rather than buying this other brand I normally buy, I'm going to get White Fox because I like all my other clothes are White Fox. I might as well buy their scent too. And the market, while it's growing overall, there's also a limit to how much it's going to grow too.
Totally. And it's going to take away from those traditional providers where it'll be interesting to see the quality. I think it's always those long-term perfumeries, I think that's
Mhm.
traditionally called, that just have the knowledge and the science behind it's really interesting. So hopefully that they can just hold through to this trend, but it will definitely take away from some of those numbers.
So how do you think you stay competitive in this space?
Leveraging the fact that you are established, that it isn't a fad, that this is your craft, I think is how you kind of be that point of difference.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think that storytelling, that heritage is such an important part of it. And you're right. Like, rather than buying something off a brand which is dabbling in fragrance, would you rather buy from someone who this is all they do? They are an expert in this. So it'd be really interesting to see where that value perception is, whether there's enough value perception in that, or whether people are just going to go with a brand because there's novelty, there's something which they can kind of, which they're already familiar with, so they just decide to extend into.
Yeah, and just to that as well, could be an awesome collab opportunity, right? So for an established perfumery to then create scents for brands, sell that together, or just the brand sell it, but at least there's that name recognition and you're kind of getting the best of both worlds there. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something which Hughes Elijah did recently as well. They partnered with George Colabaris, which is actually was a little bit weird. It's like you're partnering with a Greek restaurant. So do you smell like garlic sauce? I'm not sure what the smell you're going for is. And I haven't actually smelled that scent. I don't know how well that collection went. But yeah, you're right. I think you can still do things in this space to stay innovative, to continue to make your brand relevant.
Yeah. Or and a talking point like a Greek restaurant scent sounds relevant.
Yeah. If there was any food scent which you would want to wear on you, what would it be?
My mind just goes to salted caramel, which is the classic glasshouse fragrance that they sell at Peter Alexander. And they also have a brownie one as well, which is incredible.
Yeah, nice. Nice. I'd probably go with fairy floss.
Okay.
Yeah, I was at the Royal Show last weekend, so
Yeah.
that's the only reason why I'm saying fairy floss. Because I smelt it and it was just like, oh yeah, okay.
Okay. As compared to that awful popcorn that smells down the mall. Do you know that one?
Oh, yeah, yeah, the Johnny's popcorn.
Yeah, I can't stand that smell.
Oh, really? Every time I walk down the mall, I'm always like, "Oh, yeah, wouldn't mind getting some popcorn."
Absolutely.
Fresh popcorn, fresh hot popcorn, salted caramel, but, no,
No,
not a
thank you.
fan?
No.
Okay, alright. Okay, and our last deep dive story for today is the Gen Z holiday pullback. Now, this is from a PwC report, which shows that in the US, while boomers, millennials, Gen X are still looking to spend and possibly increase their spend, reports from Gen Z show that this holiday season, US Gen Z customers are actually expected to reduce their spending during the holiday period by about 5%. Now, the interesting thing about this, though, was not that it was cost of living pressures, but it was more of a shift towards more conscious spending.
Very interesting. What was your take when you first read through this one?
Look, didn't necessarily think that it wasn't about cost of living. And look, my hunch would be was it was going to be cost of living. But it was interesting to read that it wasn't the primary motivator, that people were actually just starting to be more conscious about what they're spending on. Not people, but Gen Z. And I wonder whether this is going to be more of a shift as well with Gen Z. And it's actually harder to acquire them as customers because they're not spending nearly as much. Because even with some other studies which I've done recently with other clients, talking with younger consumers, they're the hardest ones to acquire.
Yes.
Whereas the older ones who do have maybe a bit more free cash are able to still spend. They're still buying. Younger consumers just aren't buying anything which they see. It needs to really have a really strong novelty factor for them to go, hey, I'm going to buy this. And this extends anywhere from clothes, beauty, any category. They're just getting harder and harder to find.
Well, I think, look, Gen Z, depending on what scale you're at, most of them were brought up with mobile phones from the get go, from technology from the get go, which means that they're a lot more wary and educated on marketing on social media. So I'm not surprised to hear that they're like one of the hardest to obtain. Cost of living pressures or that more conscious purchasing, I think, plays into that, and just knowing that whatever they buy, it's their choice, and making sure that it's conscious and where they're putting their money and their dollars and who they're supporting, rather than just frivolously spending like the generation before them.
And that's exactly what they see as well. I think a lot of it goes back to this bigger trend that you don't want to be like your parents. And if you've seen your parents have packages arrive every day, they're constantly going out buying things, they're on their devices, they're living more and more virtual lives, they actually want to go out and experience things. And there's been so many reports, we talked about this last week, around how the younger generation are really seeking out experiences. They're really looking to connect with people IRL.
Yeah, exactly. And also the rise of the conversation around like a capsule wardrobe and just general sustainability, environmental impacts. But there just seems to be a lot more thought and choice into those purchases.
So do you think this is going to happen in Australia, that we may potentially see a similar pattern happen here?
Mm, That's a good question. Anecdotally, I would like when you said you don't want to be like your parents, I thought, oh, my sister probably doesn't want to be like me because she's Gen Z and I'm the one before, and she's seen some of these spending habits. I think it would make sense too if we're seeing that in the US. Surely there's going to be a trickle down to Australia. Hopefully not by 5%. Just a couple dots will do us.
Yep. Look, and when you look at it as well, like I think we probably have worse cost of living pressures, particularly around the younger generation, but also wage growth is also stagnant in the US as well. Unemployment is also becoming a greater issue there than it is here. We still have relatively good employment. So there's a lot of, push and pull in this to see what's actually going to happen overall. But I guess, from a consumer from a retailer point of view anyway, I think you need to be rethinking about who you're actually targeting and how you're going to reach that audience. So if you are going to be targeting Gen Z, you can't just be relying on the same tactics which you're using to target older generations, because those generations are much more willing to spend, as we've seen. So making sure that when you're thinking about your strategies, when you're thinking about your messaging and your advertising, really think about how you get that Gen Z consumer to really care about your products, to really care about the quality, to really care about the ethics, to make it seem like this is something which it's not, that they are actually genuinely buying better
Yeah,
when they buy your product.
exactly. I always say like making sure that you're everywhere that your customers are. And then, yeah, exactly that. Like, what are the demographics of those customers? Where are they actually shopping? Where are they looking? everybody's different.
100%. All right, Alex, that's all we've got time for this week. What is on your roadmap this week?
This week, I kick off a webinar mini series. So every Thursday morning for 15 minutes, I'll be joined by a team member as we go through a quick BFCM. Yes. BFCM. Readiness kind of checklist, but just 15-minute bites every Thursday for a month. So that kicks off this Thursday.
Fantastic. All right. Well, let's make sure we all tune in and see how that one goes. In the meantime, I will be traveling around Sydney yet again, and I will be at ETAL next week doing the keynote there and a couple of other roundtables as well. So a very full few weeks coming up with the speaking. Speaking of which, I was on IPX last week. Fantastic event. I just want to give a quick shout out to Ayan and the team there who just did such an amazing job. That event just keeps getting bigger and better.
Yeah, the venue looked amazing. They're great. Just quickly, what was the freebie this year?
The freebie, there was a new July bag, an unreleased July bag, which is kind of like a folding bag. It starts with this tiny pouch, but then it unfolds to become like a fairly large tote bag. The water bottles were from Waterdrop, so it wasn't like a branded water bottle, like anything like that. It was just Waterdrop water bottles, which get engraved. Vouchers, some bars, a few things like that. So, yep. All in all, very, very good bag. And the Alana Maria stand just kicked ass. They ran out of their free bracelets very quickly. Fantastic. All right, guys. Thank you very much for staying with us. We will be back next week for more at This Week in E-Commerce. In the meantime, keep innovating, keep growing, and keep selling. And we'll see you back here next week.
See you next week.